Her wedding day should have been the happiest of her life. Instead, Aria Chen stood trembling at the altar, facing the most feared man in the business world, a man whose cold eyes had never shown warmth until they locked with hers. What began as a forced marriage to save her family would become a dangerous game of hearts, where the devil himself would discover what it meant to fall first. If you're enjoying this story, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more captivating content that will keep you on the edge of your seat. The rain pounded against the stained glass windows of the cathedral, matching the rhythm of Aria's thundering heart. 24 hours ago, she had been a normal 25-year-old woman with dreams of finishing her art degree. Now, she stood in a wedding dress that cost more than her family's home, about to marry Damian Blackwood, the ruthless CEO whose name alone made business titans tremble. "Do you, Aria Chen, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" the priest asked, his voice echoing through the nearly empty cathedral. Aria's gaze drifted to the first row where her father sat, his face ashen. The stroke had left him weakened, but the crushing debt he'd accumulated to save his small business had broken him completely. Debt that Damian Blackwood had purchased, only to offer a simple solution: his daughter's hand in marriage in exchange for financial salvation. Aria's voice caught. She looked up at Damian, whose sharp features revealed nothing. At 32, he was the youngest billionaire in the country, with a reputation for destroying anyone who crossed him. His dark eyes studied her with an intensity that made her shiver. "I do," she finally whispered. Something flickered across Damian's face, surprise, perhaps, that she hadn't run. When it was his turn, his "I do" came out firm and possessive, as though he were closing a business deal rather than committing to a lifetime together. As his lips brushed against hers to seal their vows, Aria felt a strange electricity. For just a moment, the coldness in his eyes gave way to something else, something that looked almost like wonder. The Blackwood mansion sprawled across 50 acres of manicured grounds, a modern fortress of glass and steel that reflected its owner's personality. Aria stood in what was now her bedroom, separate from Damian's, as he had coldly informed her during the silent car ride from the cathedral. "This marriage is a business arrangement," he had stated, not looking at her. "Nothing more." A knock at the door startled her. Mrs. Reynolds, the housekeeper, entered with a sympathetic smile. "Mr. Blackwood requests your presence for dinner in 30 minutes, Mrs. Blackwood." The name felt foreign. Mrs. Blackwood, wife to a man who had essentially purchased her. Aria changed into a simple black dress she found in the closet, already filled with clothing in her size. The attention to detail in this arrangement was both impressive and disturbing. When she entered the dining room, Damian was already seated at the head of a table long enough for 20. He didn't stand when she entered, merely gestured to the chair at his right. "I trust the accommodations are satisfactory," he said, his deep voice devoid of warmth. "They're fine," Aria replied, keeping her eyes on her plate. "Thank you." "Your gratitude is unnecessary. This is a transaction, not a favor." Aria's head snapped up, anger flaring. "Is that all people are to you? Business transactions?" For a moment, Damian looked taken aback by her outburst. Then, to her surprise, the corner of his mouth twitched. "Most people, yes," he admitted. "They want something from me, I want something from them. It's simpler that way." "And what do you want from me?" Aria asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Damian's eyes darkened. "A wife. The board of directors has been pressuring me to settle down, create a more stable image for Blackwood Enterprises. You were convenient." The words stung more than they should have. Aria forced herself to maintain eye contact. "And that's it, just a name on paper." "For now," he replied, his gaze dropping briefly to her lips before returning to his meal. "We'll be expected to attend functions together, to appear united." The rest of dinner passed in uncomfortable silence. As Aria rose to leave, Damian spoke again. "Your father's medical bills have been paid in full. His business debt has been forgiven, and I've arranged for a consultant to help him restructure." Aria paused, surprised by this information. "That wasn't part of our agreement." Consider it a wedding gift, Damian said dismissively, not looking up from his phone. As she left the dining room, Aria couldn't help but wonder if there might be more to the devil's CEO than his fearsome reputation suggested. Days turned into weeks. Aria established a routine in her gilded cage. She converted one of the unused rooms into an art studio where she spent most of her time painting. Damian rarely appeared before evening, consumed by his empire building. Their interactions remained formal, distant, yet Aria began to notice small changes. Coffee prepared exactly how she liked it waiting for her each morning. Art supplies appearing in her studio, expensive brands she'd only dreamed of using. A book on her nightstand that she'd mentioned wanting to read during one of their silent dinners. One evening, she found Damian in her studio, studying a portrait she'd been working on of him, captured in a rare moment when he thought no one was watching, his features softened by contemplation. "You've made me look different," he observed, not turning as she entered. "I painted what I saw," Aria replied simply. "And what did you see?" His voice had lost its usual edge. "Someone lonely," she answered honestly. "Someone who built walls so high that even he can't remember what's behind them anymore." Damian finally turned to face her, his expression unreadable. "You shouldn't waste your talent on unworthy subjects." Before she could respond, his phone rang. The moment shattered as he answered it, his voice instantly transforming back into the cold, commanding CEO. But as he left the room, his fingers brushed against hers, the first voluntary touch since their wedding day. That night, Aria couldn't sleep. The touch replayed in her mind, along with the vulnerability she'd glimpsed in his eyes. She wandered to the kitchen for tea, surprised to find light spilling from beneath the door of Damian's home office. She hesitated, then knocked softly. "Enter," came his clipped response. Damian sat behind his desk, surrounded by papers and multiple computer screens. He looked exhausted, his tie loosened, hair slightly disheveled. "It's 3 a.m., Aria said. "Don't billionaires need sleep too?" Something that might have been a smile touched his lips. "Sleep is inefficient." "So is working yourself to death." She set a cup of tea beside him. "I made extra." He stared at the cup as though it were a foreign object. "Thank you," he said finally, the words sounding rusty from disuse. Aria turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. "Why did you agree to marry me?" The question hung in the air between them. "You could have refused. Your father would have found another way." "Would he?" Aria challenged. "You bought every debt he had. You left him no options." "There are always options," Damian countered. "You could have run." Aria considered this. "My father raised me alone after my mother died. He sacrificed everything for me. When it was my turn to help him, how could I do any less?" Damian studied her with new interest. "Loyalty, a rare quality." "Not rare, just undervalued by people who have never experienced it." His expression changed, something like pain flickering across his features before disappearing behind his usual mask. "Good night, Aria." It was the first time he'd used her name. The first public test of their marriage came 3 weeks later, the annual Blackwood Enterprises charity gala. Aria stood before her closet, overwhelmed by the selection of evening gowns. Mrs. Reynolds appeared at her door. "Mr. Blackwood asked me to give you this." The box contained a stunning emerald gown that complemented Aria's eyes perfectly. A note inside read simply, "This will suit you." When she descended the grand staircase that evening, Damian waited at the bottom, impeccable in his tuxedo. For once, he didn't hide his reaction. His eyes widened slightly, his breath visibly catching. "You look," he began, then seemed to reconsider his words. "The dress was a good choice." "Thank you for selecting it," Aria replied, noticing how his gaze lingered on her. In the limousine, Damian briefed her on the important guests. "The board members will be watching us closely. They've been suspicious of our sudden marriage." "What should I tell them?" Aria asked. "The truth often works best," he said, surprising her. "We met, I was captivated and couldn't imagine life without you." Aria laughed. "No one who knows your reputation would believe that." Something hardened in his expression. My reputation is carefully cultivated, Aria. It serves its purpose. And what purpose is that? To keep people afraid of you. Fear commands respect. Fear and respect aren't the same thing, she countered. One's given freely, the other's taken. Before he could respond, they arrived at the venue. Cameras flashed as Damian helped her from the car, his hand possessively at the small of her back. To the world, they appeared the perfect power couple. Throughout the evening, Aria watched Damian transform. He smiled more, though it never quite reached his eyes. He introduced her proudly, his hand rarely leaving hers. For the performance they were putting on, he was the attentive, besotted husband. Mrs. Blackwood, a silver-haired man approached, his smile not matching his calculating eyes. I'm Harold Winters, chairman of the board. We've been eager to meet the woman who finally captured our elusive CEO's heart. The pleasure is mine, Aria replied, feeling Damian tense beside her. Such a whirlwind romance, Winters continued. Damian never mentioned he was even dating anyone and suddenly married. You must be quite special. The challenge in his tone was unmistakable. Aria felt Damian preparing a cutting response and squeezed his hand in warning. Sometimes, she said, looking up at Damian with practiced adoration, when you just know, Damian may seem intimidating to others, but with me, she let her voice soften. He's different. Damian's eyes met hers, something genuine flickering in their depths. He brought her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. My wife sees the best in everyone, he said, not looking away from her. It's her gift. Later, as they danced, Aria felt the rigid tension in Damian's shoulders. You handled Winters perfectly, he murmured against her ear. He's been trying to force me out for years. Why does the board want you married so badly? She asked. Stability, predictability. They think a wife and eventually children will make me less ruthless in my business decisions. Will it? His hand tightened at her waist. What do you think? I think there's more to you than ruthlessness, Aria said honestly, though you try very hard to hide it. The music changed to a slower tempo. Damian pulled her closer, their bodies moving in perfect synchronization. For a moment, the performance fell away, and it was just them, moving together in the dimly lit ballroom. You're dangerous, Aria Chen, he whispered, his lips brushing her temple. Why? She asked, her heart racing at his proximity. Because you're beginning to make me believe my own lies. The night of the gala changed something between them. Damian began joining Aria for breakfast. Their dinners grew less silent, filled instead with debates about art, literature, and business ethics. He sought her opinions on company matters, genuinely listening to her perspectives. One evening, Aria found a large envelope on her bed. Inside were university enrollment papers and a letter confirming her scholarship to complete her art degree, all arranged by Damian. When confronted, he shrugged it off. Your talent shouldn't be wasted. The scholarship was merit-based. I merely expedited the process. Thank you, she said, genuinely moved. But why? Damian hesitated, then answered with unexpected honesty. I've taken your freedom. I won't take your dreams as well. That night, Aria dreamed of his touch, of the intensity in his eyes when he looked at her across the dinner table. She woke breathless, confused by her growing feelings for the man who had forced her into marriage. Meanwhile, Damian fought his own battle. For the first time in his life, his legendary focus was slipping. He found himself watching Aria as she painted, mesmerized by the passion that transformed her. Her kindness to his staff, her unflinching honesty when challenging him, these things awakened something he'd thought long dead. The turning point came unexpectedly. Aria was in the garden, sketching, when she overheard Damian on a business call. His voice was cold, merciless as he outlined how he planned to dismantle a competing company. The employees aren't my concern, he was saying. If Chen Industries can't compete, they deserve to fail. Aria froze. Chen Industries, her father's company, now run by her cousin after her father's stroke. The company Damian had promised to help restructure. When he ended the call, she confronted him, fury overriding her usual caution. "You promised to help my father's company, not destroy it," she accused, storming into his office. Damian's expression darkened. "Business decisions aren't part of our arrangement, Aria." "Was this your plan all along? Marry me to get closer to my family's business, then crush it anyway?" "Your family's business is failing because your cousin is incompetent," Damian replied coldly. "I gave him every opportunity to turn things around." "You gave him impossible targets," Aria shot back, waving the papers she'd snatched from his desk. "No company could meet these terms." "A strong company could." "A strong company wouldn't need to destroy others to succeed," she countered. "Is that really the legacy you want, Damian? To be feared rather than respected? To win by making others lose?" Something in her words seemed to strike him. He turned away, staring out the window at the gathering storm clouds. "Leave," he ordered quietly. "No," Aria refused, standing her ground. "I agreed to this marriage. I've played my part, but I won't stand by while you destroy my family's legacy out of some twisted game." Damian turned back, his expression thunderous. "Game? You think this is a game to me?" "I think everything is a game to you," she said. "People are pieces to be moved around your board, even me." He moved toward her then, his presence intimidating. "You have no idea what you're talking about." "Then explain it to me," she challenged. "Make me understand why the great Damian Blackwood needs to crush a small family business that poses no real threat to his empire." "Because your cousin approached my biggest competitor with proprietary information stolen from my company," Damian finally exploded. "Information he could only have obtained through you." Aria stepped back, stunned. "That's impossible. I don't have access to anything confidential." "My private server was accessed from this house on 3 occasions when I was traveling," Damian said, his voice deadly quiet. "The only other person here was you." Understanding dawned. "You think I married you to spy for my family? That this whole time I've been, what, some corporate honeypot?" The accusation hung between them, ugly and poisonous. "It wouldn't be the first time someone got close to me for business advantages," Damian said, but doubt had crept into his voice. "Check your security footage," Aria said, her voice shaking with hurt and anger. "Check whatever you need to, but know this, I have never betrayed you, not once. Despite everything, I actually started to—" She stopped herself, tears threatening. "Started to what?" Damian pressed, stepping closer. "It doesn't matter," she whispered, turning away. "I'll pack my things." His hand caught her wrist, gentle despite his obvious tension. "Finish what you were saying." Aria looked up at him, no longer hiding the pain in her eyes. "I started to care for you. Stupid, right? Falling for the devil who bought me." Damian's expression changed, the anger giving way to something more complex. "Aria." "Don't," she pulled away. "Just don't." That night, Aria packed a small bag, planning to leave at first light.